Hey guys, and welcome back to Computer Essentials here at Heartbeat Christian Academy. And it's my objective that in this course you will learn the basics of computers and all your fears will go away. Without any further ado, let me just give you the banking details. If you want to support us, there's the banking details, and there's also the contact details if you need that. And today we are dealing with Computer Essentials. We are going to be doing lesson 7, which is output devices, and then we're also going to be looking at lesson 8, which is the revision. We try and do those two always together. If you know and you've been following along in the manual, you'll see there that we've done section 1, which is now completed up to lesson 4. And now we are also completing section 2. So you are really moving on and you are getting to know computers. If you look at the topics there, you will notice that there's quite a few things that you've learned. And you can really be proud of yourself for sticking through and sticking on and carrying on with this course and not giving up. I know sometimes learning something new is intimidating, but I mean, you've learned about the types of the computer, the parts of the computer, the hardware, the software, the central processing unit I showed you last time. And then also we've looked at the input devices. Today we're going to look at the output devices. But before we do that, I've set up a second camera here on the bottom where I've got a computer that's open, so that's for your benefit. And the mic might go softer and louder now because I'm going to be moving around a bit, so I apologize if that is the case. But what I've done is I've taken the side panel off. You can see there's a side panel here, and I've taken the side panel off the case, so literally just taken out 2 screws and pulled the side panel off. We can put that one side, and you can see this side panel, for instance, it has a little thing here which is a bit of an air vent. So what it does is it's positioned right across the CPU or on top of the CPU. So as the CPU fan is extracting the heat from the CPU itself, the fan and the heat sink. Remember I said to you the CPU has a fan and a heat sink on top of it. There we go, that's what those look like. And as it's extracting then the heat out of the case, which is quite a nice concept. But I wanted to show you what these components look like inside the case so that you can see. I'll never forget the first time I opened the computer. It was so intimidating. You know, you look at all these wires and you say, oh, what do they do and what are they and that sort of thing. But eventually you end up sort of making sense of it all. And if you look at it there, you can see actually there's the CPU mounted under the heatsink and the fan. There's the power supply right in the corner there. You can see it there. There's the power supply. There's the CPU and the fan. And just turning it a bit this way for you, you can have a look there. And then maybe going to the other side, you can see there is also, I don't know if you can see it there, but the hard drive is also mounted in the case. Just want to position it a bit better. There, the hard drive is mounted in the case. There's the hard drive, and that is connected on to the power supply with a power cable and with a data cable. So, you know, you pull out these data cables, you pull out these power cables. Now the hard drive is disconnected. So that's how easy it actually is to take a hard drive out. You would actually just take a screwdriver, and then you would actually just unscrew those 2 screws there. Let me just show you. And like I say, I'm showing you more than I'm supposed to show you, but I do this with a specific purpose. Okay, so I'm unscrewing 2 screws. Now I hope it's not screwed on the other side. Sometimes it is. Just unscrew it. Okay, and then so take this. Okay, let's do this. Take out the other. Just take the other side off. Yeah. So it's got a screw on the other side as well. taken those screws out. Let's put them one side, turn it around so you can see, and there's the hard drive coming straight out of the computer. So that's the hard drive. That's where this stores your data. So don't get confused with random access memory and a hard drive. A hard drive is a device that stores your data. And this is when we talk about you've got a 1 terabyte drive in, you've got a 500 gig drive in. This is the size of the drive. And you will learn this in one of the following sections when we talk about storage. But I also want to show you this. This is a hard drive that I've taken apart. And you can see there, it's got a spinning motor that spins this plate. And it's got a head there on the side. And that head reads the data. So that head reads the data on what is known as the platter. So that's how the spinning drives work. That's why a lot of times you hear sounds coming from the drive like that. It actually means that the head is stuck. If you hear that sound, then most of the time all your data is gone. But this is your standard old type of drive. Your new SSD drives, hard drives, they're much faster because they don't have a spinning motor, DCC motor. They don't have plates. They don't have a head. They are literally just chip memory. So it's like, it looks like a RAM chip on the inside. If you open an SSD drive, it's chips, and it accesses the data directly from that, which makes it much faster. But I mean, in most of your desktop computers, people are still installing these because the size of the drive. So you want like terabyte data, you want to store all your photos, everything on that. So people will still install a terabyte, 2 terabyte, 3 terabyte drive because the solid state drives are expensive as far as that is concerned. You really pay a lot of money if you buy a solid state drive. If you have to buy like a terabyte solid state drive, it's probably 3 times more expensive than a terabyte normal drive. But it's much faster. Your boot up is seconds. Accessing programs is faster. It really makes a huge performance improvement. So I've just taken the hard drive out by unscrewing the screws and by taking 2 cables off. The one is the power cable that gives the drive motor power, and the other one is the data cable. But you don't really need to know that. I mean, that's not something that you have to know. I just wanted to show you that a hard drive gets fitted into a case. So when somebody's giving you a computer specs, they will talk about the hard drive. What is the size where your data will be stored? Then they will talk about something called RAM. And we'll learn about that in one of the next sections. But let me show you while we're on the computer lab day here and we've got the computer open, we're taking the thing apart. Let's just pull out the RAM chips now. I don't know if you can see that, but there's 2 white slots there, or white little things there. If you push them back, then your RAM chip just pulls right out. So that's your random access memory in your desktop computer. This is your running memory, random access memory, and we'll talk about that in one of the next sections. But just so that you know what you're supposed to know in computer essentials, you need to know RAM, random access memory. You will learn about that. You will learn about hard drive under the storage section, which is the next section, and RAM under the next section. But if somebody says, for instance, here we have a 1 gig chip, so it's a 1 gig chip. So this means that when I open my Windows, when I install software, it's loaded on my hard drive. So the software is running on the drive. Okay, the main files are there on the hard drive. But when I open up the application, when I start using the application, it will actually open in the chip memory. So it will open in the chip memory, and that will take up RAM space. So random access memory, but when I shut the computer off, then the memory is cleared on this thing. But on my hard drive, my photos and my data won't be cleared because it's stored on those platters that I just showed you now, and you can still access that. That's why with these drives, just to mention that, don't drop them, because especially when they're spinning, if you bump very hard, the head could drop on the platter and cause permanent damage, which means all your data is gone. You can send this to a lab in Cape Town or Joburg or any cities of the world, but data recovery, hardware data recovery is extremely expensive because they take this apart and they rebuild the drive. and then it costs you a lot of money. So what do you need to know? You need to know RAM, you've got that. Random access memory, we'll talk about that. You need to know hard drive, you've got that. I've just pulled both out of this computer box. And there's your motherboard sitting there. You know the motherboard, and there's your CPU sitting there. I mean, if you unclip the heatsink, I would normally do this with a screwdriver, not with the bare hands. Pulled off the heatsink. So there's the heatsink. Just as a side note, on the heatsink at the bottom, there's a bit of what is called thermal paste. It's a paste that is used to actually be a conductor between the heatsink and the CPU, the central processing unit. And as I showed you, there is the processor sitting right under the heatsink. And to open it up, you have to just lift this lever. As you know, you lift the lever, and then voila, the processor comes right out. There's the processor. And remember what I told you, you don't touch those pins, because those pins have these contacts on them, and the light's a bit bad to see the contacts there, but if some of the pins are bent, you can't put the contacts in, and the CPU only fits into the socket one way. It's actually, there's a little chip there, you can't see it, but it only fits in one way, and you will drop it back in there, and then you will just clip that lever down, and then the CPU is reinstalled. And these you can then put back and then reconnect the fan, power to the motherboard. So I don't think there's anything else you really need to know. I didn't take that out, but this is your DVD writer, also connected to the motherboard and also connected to the power supply. So your power supply has numerous connectors for your drives, and for your optical drives, which is your DVD writer and CD-ROM and those things, and also for your hard drive, and sometimes also for your graphics card, but that's a bit too advanced, so I'm not gonna really go into that side of it. So that is my what I call show and tell for today, and I hope that's been informative for you. Just going to move over and remove that particular camera so that we can carry on with our lecture and get back to the place where we are supposed to run through the manual. So yes, I know I'm possibly oversharing, but for you that maybe if you've never seen the inside of a computer, you've heard of RAM and you've heard of hard drives and that, and you get irritated when people use the jargon. In this case, you actually see, well, you know, it's not that bad. It's not difficult to understand. It's not difficult to grasp. I've just showed you. I was surprised when I started working on computers that you would just be a part swapper, swapping parts. I was surprised. I thought it was going to be difficult and integrate, but I thought, you know, these cables only fit in one way, so there's not much more you can do on that. And then let's get into today's lecture. We don't want to make this too long for those that have data problems. So we're looking at output devices, and really an output device is exactly what it says. It's an output device. It's something that takes output out of the computer. If you are pushing play on your audio application and your speakers start playing music, that's an output device. If you are pushing print, you are working in Microsoft Word and you want to print a document or a nice photo, you push print, then you get output. You get a photo. The same with monitor. Whatever you do on your keyboard, your input device shows on your monitor. That's the connection. And the same, the headset or headphones will do the same, where you will hear the sound in your ears, and then data projectors project against the wall, and then plotters are similar to printers. They're just large format printers, and we just mention them there so that you can understand that that is an output device. Output device is any device that allows the result of a PC's processing activity to be seen or heard. So seen on a screen or heard via speakers and that. And again, I'm just showing you the input-output connectors at the back of the main board. I didn't show them to you on the motherboard that I have here in the office, but they are surely there. And you can know they're there, and it's good to get to know them, because then you're not so intimidated by HDMI or VGA or USB. It sounds like a different language, but the more you see that and the more you hear that, the more familiar that will become to you. So in order to sort of pass this lesson from the ICDL perspective, you will need to explain the term output devices, and you will need to name devices that are both output and input. Remember, I mentioned to you yesterday that the touch screen is a good example of output you're seeing on the screen, and then input you pushing on the screen to select things on the touch screen. Then I've just put some questions here. That's the revision questions, and if you look at explain the term CPU, central processing unit, that I've said over and over again. What does a CPU do, and in what units is the speed measured? So think of the measurements: a million hertz per second, a billion hertz per second. So and there's the answer: calculations, transfer, and measured in megahertz and gigahertz. And then list some of the main input devices, and we've listed them. I've just put the names on there for you so that you can understand that. And then also list some of the output devices, and then what would a plotter be used for. Now a plotter, it says here technical drawings and maps and those sort of things, because they do a large format. So it's about the format of the printer, that's a large format printer. So that concludes this lesson, and both lectures, and the next section we're going to be looking at storage. I've already touched on it, and I will keep on reiterating so that you can see the hard drive, see how it works, and that will bring it to memory. So in storage, we will start talking about, what is a meg, what is a gig, those type of things. So I'm excited to take you into that lecture next, and I hope to see you under section 3, storage. God bless you.